few people who really like Commissioner Martin O'Malley and want him to continue to succeed in achieving his direction and goals for the Social Security Administration when it comes to basically making it an organization that has really good call times, has, benefits being processed really quickly. So a lot of people are starting to get worried because if President Trump gets in, President Biden didn't treat, Commissioner Saul that well with the termination process. So a lot of people have been kind of reaching out to me saying, what's going to happen to Commissioner Martin O'Malley if Trump gets in? Because, just so you know, in summary, Commissioner Saul was like, yeah, everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to be wonderful. It's going to be amazing. I hear my dog over there. But, the problem is Commissioner Saul basically was logged out, never allowed technologically to log back in, fired effective immediately. And this was all allowed because of a Supreme Court ruling. So we're going to go into that. We're going to go into understanding what exactly happened. There's an article here, Changes at the Social Security Administration by Bruce D. Schobel in the Public Interest, November 2021. Here we go. Summer was exciting in the Social Security Administration. On July 9th, 2021, President Biden demanded the resignation of Commissioner of Social Security Andrew Saul, who refused to resign and was fired by the president effective immediately. To understand how surprising, but in some ways unsurprising, this event was, we need to review a lot of history. Here we go. The original Social Security Act of 1935, Public Law 74-270, created the Social Security Board, an independent agency within the executive branch that administered the Social Security program. In 1939, the board was merged into the cabinet-level Federal Security Agency, which also included the Public Health Service and the Civilian Conservation Corps, among other governmental units. In 1946, the Social Security Board was renamed the Social Security Administration, a name that the agency has retained to this day. In 1953, the SSA was moved into the newly created Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, HEW. In 1980, after the standalone Department of Education was spun off, the rest of HEW was renamed the Department of Health and Human Services, which we know as HHS, which is what we have today, which retained authority over the SSA for 14 years. On August 15th, 1994, so not that long ago, President Clinton signed into law that the Social Security Independent and Program Improvements Act of 1994, Public Law 103-296, that lengthy and complicated law established the SSA as an independent agency once again, i.e. independent of any other executive branch department, reporting directly to the president. Now, to be fair, they went through a long version of having this group being more independent from the federal government to being stuck under a bunch of other agencies or, large, massive, entities of the federal government, to then ending up directly under the finger and control of the president of the United States. So we went from something that was better to something that was shitty, because now the government, through the president, can directly affect it all more aggressively through, immediate communications. Because remember, the commissioner of the SSA talks directly to the president. So, the SSA is whoever's in office. That's what it is. It's not a prior this or a future that. It's whoever's in office right now. That's the SSA that they are creating. Okay. It's not an independent board, so much like it used to be. In fact, we don't even, I don't know if we put in the independent personnel that we're supposed to have on the board, but that's another video. Here we go. Okay. Bottom line. The stated goal was to make the SSA and Social Security policy making in general much less political. Ironically, it's made it extremely political, but, again, they always make these taglines, and then what they're doing is the opposite of the tagline. On its very first page, Section 102 of the law established the Office of the Commissioner of the Social Security with a new 6-year term. Of course, that position had existed since 1935, but the commissioner previously served at the pleasure of the president without a fixed term and subject to replacement at any time for any reason, or no reason at all, which is exactly what we have now. It's the same thing. Except you get 6 years that may never be served. The new law attempted to protect the commissioner from political influence in the following way, emphasis added. Here we go. Commissioner of Social Security. There shall be in the administration commissioner of the Social Security, in this title referred to as the commissioner, who shall be appointed by the president by and with the advice and consent of the Senate. 2, the commissioner shall be compensated at the rate provided for level 1 of the executive schedule. Just so you guys know, if you're wondering, level 1, Well, it's over 250,000. It's over that. The commissioner shall be appointed for a term of 6 years, except that the initial term of office for commissioners shall terminate January 19th, 2001. In any case in which a successor does not take office at the end of the commissioner's term of office, such commissioner may continue in office until the entry upon office of such a successor. That was their way of making sure the position was filled. A commissioner appointed to a term of office after the commencement of such term may serve under such appointment only for the remainder of such term. An individual serving in the office of commissioner may be removed from office only pursuant to a finding. This is the important part. Like if you're wondering like where this is the important part. Okay. Commissioner may be removed from office only pursuant to a finding by the president of neglect of duty or malfeasance in office. Remember that. The president has to find the president, neglect of duty, or malfeasance in office. Andrew Saul is a New York businessman who was nominated to be Commissioner of Social Security by President Trump in April 2018. During the George W. Bush administration, he chaired the Federal Thrift Investment Board, which helps to administer the Thrift Savings Plan, a 401k-like retirement plan for federal employees. He was also a major contributor to President Trump's inauguration events. Major contributor. The Senate failed to act on Saul's first nomination to become commissioner before the end of that Congress in 2018. So he was renominated on January 22nd, 2019, and ultimately confirmed by the Senate on June 4th, 2019 by a 77 to 16 vote, which is massive. Like that's a massive amount of people voting for this individual. His 6-year term was expected to end on January 19, 2025. The situation at the beginning of the Biden administration seemed to parallel that of 2009, when incoming President Obama had a commissioner of Social Security, Michael J. Strew, who's in a lot of like litigation stuff that we actually memorized as part of our law. Like there were a lot of like keynote big cases that came out of that era. Who was appointed by President George W. Bush in 2007 to a 6-year term that ended on January 19, 2013. President Obama never did name a confirmed commissioner, but had 2 long-serving acting commissioners during his second term. Most observers expected Andrew Saul to remain in his position until the scheduled end of his term, like Michael Strew did. But there were hints that Saul might not last so long. Here's the important part again. On January 21st, 2021, President Biden's second day in office, his administration issued a list of acting officials who should be regarded as placeholders until replacements could be nominated by the president and confirmed by the Senate. Commissioner Saul was obviously on that list. I put it in obviously. They didn't say obviously, but obviously he'd be on that list. Even though he had been confirmed by the Senate 2 years before and was certainly not acting in the usual sense of the word. Moreover, he had the protection of the Social Security Act, Section 702A3, which allowed his removal only for neglect of duty or malfeasance in office. Now, this situation changed dramatically on June 23rd, I think it's 2021, with the United States Supreme Court's issuance of a decision of Patrick J. Collins et al. V. Jenna L. Yellen, okay? Case number 19-422. The case revolved around statutory provisions in the Recovery Act limiting the president's ability, except for cause, to remove and replace the head of an obscure Treasury Department unit called the Federal Housing Finance Agency, FHFA. The court's opinion was fragmented, but essentially unanimous. Here is the relevant part. Okay. The Recoveries Act for Cause restriction on the president's removal authority violates the separation of powers. Indeed, our decision last term in SEALA law is all but dispositive. There, we held that Congress could not limit the president's power to remove the director of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau to instances of inefficiency, neglect, or malfeasance. We did not revisit our prior decisions allowing certain limitations on the president's removal power, but we found compelling reasons not to extend those precedents to the novel context of an independent agency led by a single director. Such an agency, we observed, lacks a foundation in historical practice and clashes with constitutional structure by concentrating power in a unilateral actor insulated from presidential control. A straightforward application of our reasoning in SEALA or SEALA, I'm not sure how they pronounce it, law dictates the result here. The FHFA, like the CFPB, is an agency led by a single director, right? So single director with those, treasury agencies. And then, of course, the commissioner of the SSA is its own single director. And the Recovery Act, like the Dodd-Frank Act, restricts the president's removal power. Fulfilling his obligation to defend the constitutionality of the Recoveries Act removal restriction, amicus attempts, like an amicus brief, to distinguish the FHFA from the CFPB, right? They're trying to figure out, can President Biden fire essentially Trump's, old SSA commissioner that was a holdover, okay? We do not find any of these distinctions sufficient to justify a different result. The long decision goes on to list other executive branch agencies with similar restrictions on removing the director. One of them is the Social Security Agency Administration. Obviously, one can infer that the restrictions on the SSA Section 702A3 would also be regarded as an unconstitutional limit on the president's power and a violation of the separation of powers. Thus, the president was immediately free to remove Commissioner Saul at any time without having to establish neglect or malfeasance. Okay, so let me read that part to you again because it got a little legalese right there. Here's what you need to know. The president, through this Supreme Court ruling, gained the power to immediately remove future commissioners of the SSA without having to show negligence or malfeasance as they were acting as the commissioner. So, like weeks later, on Friday, July 9th, President Biden fired Saul. An interesting footnote to that event is Saul's public statement that he could not be fired and would be logging into work on Monday, July 12th. Apparently, he was conducting virtually all business remotely, either from his New York home or from a hotel suite in Washington, D.C. The IT staff at the SSA did not allow former Commissioner Saul to log in on July 12th. Okay. Even though the president's authority to fire the commissioner is now unfettered, right? We know where it's at. We know what they decided. There was no shortage of reasons given to justify Saul's firing from the New York Times. So, and what they're upset about is what Saul did with SSI people. Okay. And I'm going to, because this is a little left-leaning article, I'm going to try and give you a more neutral standpoint as to the reality of what happened, but let me walk you through it real quick. Democrats have sought to oust Mr. Saul from his position since the early days of Mr. Biden's administration. Those calls grew in the wake of a $1.9 trillion stimulus package that Democrats passed in March, which included 1,400 direct payments to individuals. Lawmakers have said Mr. Saul helped to delay payments to retirees by not transmitting necessary files to the Internal Revenue Service. Mr. Saul's agency said it did not receive funding to do that work. Ohio Senator Sherrod Brown, the chairman of the Senate Finance Committee Subcommittee on Social Security, Pensions, and Family Policy, called for Mr. Saul's resignation in February, saying Mr. Saul had sought to issue regulations meant to reduce access to Social Security disability benefits, including denying benefits to an estimated 100,000 potential recipients who did not speak English fluently. Social Security is the bedrock, here's a quote, is the bedrock of our middle class that Americans earn and count on, and they need a Social Security commissioner who will honor that promise to seniors, survivors, and people with disabilities now and for decades to come, Mr. Brown said on Friday. Instead, Andrew Saul tried to systematically dismantle Social Security as we know it from within. That is a little extreme. That comment, that quote it's wrong. It's not accurate. Here's what really happened. Okay, just so you guys understand it. When the SSA, so when they passed the stimulus checks, right? And then they were like, okay, SSA, we want you to figure out who goes on this list of all these SSI people, of all these different groups. We want you to figure out who's going to go on this list. And then we want you to work up this whole thing about processing payments and create all these new systems and just do what we needed to do. Well, Commissioner Saul said at the time, whoa. You want us to do all this extra stuff, you're going to have to pay us more money. Because if we don't have the money to do it, we only have to do what Congress has created, in our like task master system that we should do. And this is all new stuff. This wasn't originally created in our charter of what we had to do. So he went to the IRS and the Treasury and said, you got to pay us more money so that we can actually pull this thing off. And buying through that, you've got to pay us more money. You've got to pay my employees more, which was a good boss move. It was a good boss move, to get your employees more money to go ahead and do more tasks, to put more stress on them because, you should get more money if you're doing more stuff, right? So what happened was, basically, putting it very simply, Biden didn't like that the SSI payments were stalled because Commissioner Saul reached out to go ahead and basically get more money to process those payments. So what happened was the White House took that as an opportunity to attack Saul because they wanted Commissioner Saul out. And, basically what it really came down to is the White House supported SSI recipients receiving their checks more than the federal employees who had to do a bunch of extra work, stay overnight, not overnight, but stay long hours and keep working harder and harder and harder to try and figure out how to make what they wanted to work. That's what actually happened. This is a fluff version of that from a more liberal, left side, Democrat oriented push. That's the neutral, what actually happened. So now, he was trying to get more money for his employees. That's what happened there. A White House official speaking anonymously because he was not authorized to discuss the firing publicly said the administration believed that Mr. Saul had undermined Social Security's disability benefits, terminated telework policy at the agency, and alienated federal employees' unions over workforce safety planning amid the pandemic. Okay. There was other stuff, right? But the main thing was the SSI people didn't get their stimulus check fast enough. That was like the main thing. Okay. Mr. Saul did not immediately respond to a request for comment. So who is in charge at the SSA? In addition to creating the Office of Commissioner of Social Security, the 1994 law also created the Office of Principal Deputy Commissioner, like the step-down person. That position had been held by another Trump appointee, David Black. Black did not do, just so you guys know, what, Saul did. Black was just like, cool, peace out, I'm gone. So that was his thing. He was asked to resign July 9th and did so. At the beginning of the Biden administration in January, the president directed the appointment of several lower-level staff at SSA, but clearly not selected by Commissioner Saul, including Chief of Staff Scott Fry, who had been Deputy Commissioner for Legislation and Congressional Affairs during the Obama administration, and Deputy Commissioner for Retirement and Disability Policy, Khalil Kijakazi, who came from the Urban Institute and had early government experience working on the food stamp program. Deputy Commissioner Kijakazi was named acting commissioner effective July 9th, according to the Federal News Network. The White House said Kijakazi will lead SSA on an acting basis until the search for a new commissioner and deputy commissioner is complete. Today, and this is a quote, President Biden made the decision to change agency leadership and has asked me to serve as the acting commissioner, Kijakazi said in the email, which Federal News Network obtained. Over the past several months, I have gained great appreciation for SSA, and I've witnessed the commitment you bring to the public service each day. At the time of that writing, in November, the president had neither nominated her to fill the position on a permanent basis nor nominated anyone else. SSA has a long history of acting commissioners serving for extended periods of time, lasting years. Whenever President Biden nominates a new commissioner, the nominee will need to be confirmed by the Senate and will fill the remaining years of Commissioner Saul's terms. Now, just to give you my little thing, I thought Commissioner Kijakazi was going to be confirmed by the Senate. And every time this stuff would roll around, or I would expect we're getting ramped up to do that, it just wouldn't be there. So President Biden basically put her in my opinion, at least leaning towards knowing that she would only be an acting commissioner as a placeholder and never the full commissioner. And that basically Martin O'Malley was picked as the new commissioner for a couple of reasons, where he was actually confirmed by the Senate. One, similar political background to President Biden. Two, a presidential candidate potentially in the future for the Democratic Party. Three, has a good history of basically working with government organizations and getting the workers on track and gauging their work, capabilities, et cetera. Because, in government jobs, there's a lot of waste, right? If you were to ever be like, what are the jobs that are the most % off task? That would be government jobs. They are the most off task out of like other jobs that exist. Because, in other jobs, it's free market capitalism. You don't work, you don't get paid. That kind of gig with free market capitalism. But with government jobs, you can do hardly any work in some jobs and still get paid, right? That's just the kicker. In other news or non-news, the two critically important positions of public members of the Social Security's Board of Trustees remain vacant, right? Which are the two people that are supposed to be regular people that sit on the board to allow changes, be part of changes, etc. And that was at that time. As they've, and those have remained vacant since 2015. I don't know if they've been filled today. Let me check real quick and see if they've been filled today. Social Security Board vacant or vacancies. Let's see. I might have to go ahead and do a more specific thing to see if they're trustees. Hold on. Social Security Board trustees vacant. Let me see real quick. Because remember, one of them has to be like Okay, as of March 2023, the public trustee positions on the Social Security Board of Trustees are vacant. I'd have to look and see if they were ever filled. I thought they were going to get filled this year. Let me see. Let me just see if it's in here real quick. I'm going to try and do a quick search. See if it's loading. 2023 public trustee and public trustee. So, okay, just so you guys know, there's supposed to be 2 public trustees on the board, right? There's a secretary of the treasury on it, acting secretary of labor. And some of these people have to be on, some of them don't. Then there's the secretary of health and human services. Then there's the acting commissioner, and then there's the chief of staff of the SSA. And then there's supposed to be 2 public trustees. These are the people that we're supposed to rely on that are going to say something, see something, say something if they're doing something shady. Well, that has those 2 positions on that board, which, they keep adding people to water down the public trustees and their ability to do votes. But those positions have been de facto vacant since 2015. So if shady stuff was going on at the SSA at the highest level, we would never know because our public trustees are vacant. We don't have access to it. So we don't have access to what they would know, the inside meetings. We don't have access to that stuff. So one of the big problems is those should be filled, but they shouldn't be filled by political people who usually take those roles. Now, all right. Now you understand basically the basic principles of this. Let me just see if there's a good, if there's anything in here. Okay, so we went over that. So here's the deal. Just as a practical application, if President Biden were to go ahead and lose the election in 2024 to 2025, then I would imagine President Trump already has somebody picked, could be Commissioner Saul again, to come back in, and basically he would essentially fire Martin O'Malley and then basically put in an acting commissioner, Saul, or somebody else, if Saul would want to take it. And then from that point, he would request that the Senate would go ahead and validate Commissioner Saul back into the position. Now, Commissioner Saul did a lot of things that I didn't like, okay? Was not pro attorneys for the disabled, changed the appeal rules, which made it very difficult to appeal Social Security disability claims, changed some of the listings in a way that I absolutely hate. So there are a lot of things I didn't like about Commissioner Saul. I'm not for Commissioner Saul in any way, fashion, or form. He took an industry and basically really scrunched it. And also there were, a lot of issues with the amount of employees and unions and things like that. So a better option is that, I see Diana Fernandez, you're going to miss the chat. That's fine. No worries. I see a better option would be potentially somebody else who's got a little bit less of this aggressiveness to basically cut down benefits, when it comes to being able to access them for Social Security disability benefits, because that's what happened. Massive amount of reductions in the amount of appeals that will go through. Redoing of the way it was explained to me were bins, like people that were in the 50 to 55 bin, 55 to 60 bin, 60 plus bin, and how they adjudicate them. So just to basically put it out there, I was not a big fan of Commissioner Saul for a lot of reasons. At the end of the day, he'll probably pick somebody else because Commissioner Saul is getting up there, and also I doubt he's going to want to come back and deal with this. He's a very, very, very rich individual. But the point is, just to clarify, remember, that's something else to consider too. Some of these positions, these leadership roles, these roles within the federal government are filled by very, very rich people who have essentially made a large donation or helped fund a super PAC for that individual as they were becoming president. So a lot of these positions get filled by those individuals. Now, going forward, if Trump were to go ahead and win, I would almost certainly say that he would put some other individual in and fire Martin O'Malley very quickly. Do I think Martin O'Malley is good for the SSA? I think it's a very good thing for the SSA. Do I think he's kind of a mixture in between Commissioner Saul and Commissioner Kijikazi? Yeah, I would say so. But at the end of the day, I'm not so excited about a new Commissioner Saul-esque individual in the SSA. I have no control over it, obviously. But one thing I guess what I would say is this rule makes it so that the president, if he wanted to or she wanted to, could just keep firing commissioners until they ended up with somebody that was going to do what they want them to do. Now, I will point out one thing, Commissioner Martin O'Malley was put in as a potential cheerleader for the policies behind what, President Biden wanted. But I'm just going to, show you when they came out with the new budget. Commissioner Martin O'Malley was right on that thing to release, his take on simplified version of what the budget would do for the SSA in a very pro Biden way. But that's why he was put in. He's put in to be a cheerleader and to fix the union issues, the overpayment issues, the slow ability to reach somebody at the SSA with phone calls or, basically going to the office and having to wait in these ridiculous lines. He was brought in to fix those issues. So, but again, it's a job I would not wish on anybody. Fixing the SSA right now, a miserable, miserable job. So anyways, guys, I'll catch you a little bit later. You have a wonderful, wonderful day. Please remember to essentially take care of yourself. It is an election year. And also, I hope you're doing well. Please, if you like these videos and you learn things from them, please remember to like and subscribe. And if you see Disability Resolution on Google, Disability Resolution Florida, Disability Resolution Law Firm, go ahead and throw some stars on it. Please also remember we do lives on Tuesday and Thursday. And basically, you can always call in during those lives. They're usually around 9-ish, maybe 10-ish. And then basically, you just call the phone number, the 407-279-1754. If you need more than 5 to 7 minutes, you can always reach out to me and do the 1-hour private session where we put you on my hearing calendar for 1 hour. And then basically, you can ask me questions. Some of my usual people, questions are like, number one, I'm getting ready to get out of this work environment. How do I go into disability benefits? What program should I be on? Number two, run hearing questions with me. Number three, some sort of weird overpayment or CDI issue, stuff like that. Okay. That's where people hire me for the hour. So I will catch you a little bit later. You have a wonderful, wonderful day, and we will go from there. Again, thank you so much and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. All right. I'll catch you later, everybody. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye.